People might think I'm being a bit hard on leftists, banging them out the way I do, and the rejoinder might be, well, you know, at the end of the day, they're just like concerned about people, and naive though they might be, you know, they just want to do good to people and create a kinder, more tolerant world. Well, I beg to differ. As it says in the Bible, you don't get good fruit from a bad tree. And there is just something more to leftists than just some general sense of doing good in the world. There's something a bit darker going on there. If you analyse it, you'll find that just about everything leftists say that sounds reasonable, which the starting point is always some sort of reasonable motherhood statement about something or other. But if you scratch the surface, you'll find that it has a fairly significant negative component. For example, so they've been campaigning against racism. Over the years and over the decades, it just becomes kind of evident that everything they're trying to do for black people, and people of other races, at the end of the day, this comes down to a real kind of a quite malicious campaign against white people. And it's the same as between men and women, bosses and workers. It's the classic, the Marxist class war. They always call communism an ideology of hate, which it is. So in the modern world, it's a case of all evil men oppress all innocent women all the time. All white people, evil white people, oppress all innocent black people all the time. And it's just bitter sort of class struggle, fight to the death that they portray, accompanied by all the suitable slogans, of course. The best one doing the rounds these days is especially in America, is the leftist slogan, "Love trumps hate." So you have Madonna addressing Trump supporters with "F you." Well, that's love. So, like, what would hate be? like if you really hated somebody, and you've got Robert De Niro, verbally abusing Trump and, wanting to punch him out. Well, that's a love too, isn't it? So, like, what would hate be in his case? And you've got Madonna again wanting to blow up the White House, many of whose staff members are black, killing them, but that's okay. Now so that's love. So what would hate be? So if they really hated you, like, what would they do to you then, And you've got Hillary Clinton saying, we'll just shove civility for now, civility for the Republicans until we win back power in the House and all this. Until then you can be as uncivil as you like, all in the quest of civility. You've got this new Democrat Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib, or whatever her name is, referring to Trump as an MFer. And again, love trumps hate. And Maxine Waters encouraging people to hound and abuse people who have anything to do with the Republican Party because they're so hateful and they're just so evil. Now, of course, this is all hypocritical and sounds like selective morality and all this sort of stuff. But getting back to what I was saying before about how everything positive leftists want to achieve is generally an exercise in being nasty to somebody else on the other side of wherever they're at. And this is the ideological game playing they engage in. It annoys me endlessly when I hear conservatives describe leftists as engaging in selective morality or something like this. It's not selective. It's selective sounds like you've kind of got a choice and you make a bad choice. No, this is actually, it goes to the very root of their whole ideological stance towards the world. It's not accidental, or they're not dropping the ball, or taking their eye off the ball or something like that, or forgetting themselves. It's absolutely crucial to their whole philosophical view of the world, and you really need to get this. It's what they call a zero-sum game. They cannot do anything they want without positively undermining or destroying people on the other side, to whatever they are. It's absolutely crucial to it. It isn't just some side issue. They believe that the whole thing is an ideological struggle on the level of your conscious political reasoning, which is not the way things are, but that's the way they think it is. For example, when I was growing up in the 60s, these people would talk endlessly about being anti-war, which really came down to, I just read an anti-war book, or I just saw an anti-war film, and this guy just made an anti-war film because he's an anti-war director, or I marched down the street with a peace sign. They take on this anti-war ideology. And what they really mean is that they're countering a pro-war ideology, that somebody has somehow brainwashed you into. It's all on the level of conscious reasoning, and this is where it's so clever. It exploits our inherent desire to be rational and seem to be rationally functioning people. That naturally we have war because we consciously desire it, or we don't have war because we consciously desire not to have war. So you've got a competition between competing ideologies, what I refer to as things that you can learn in the classroom. Now, this is actually a load of bunkum. Everybody comes into the world pro-war because there's no such thing as a pro-war political philosophy. People are just going to go to war when the need arises. They're just going to do that. But these leftists, they're so clever and deceitful, they make it sound like it's something you've been brainwashed into by your teachers or your parents or something like that. It's a competition between competing consciousnesses. We're all pro-war because we're all going to justify war when we need to. During the first Gulf War, Australia had a Labor government, and the Labor government saw the rightness and correctness of going to war against Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. And you had this first generation of young Labor ministers who'd come straight out of the 60s and 70s protest movements, tearfully going before the media and saying, it's against all my instincts and against all my principles, but I must assent to this policy of our government, with tears streaming down their eyes. Now, these people are going to go to war just as readily as anybody else if they need to. It isn't something they learnt to do in school. It isn't something they were brainwashed into. This is just an ideological, intellectual fantasy by the left. And it feeds into this narrative of how they're totally righteous people standing up against evil people on the other side, an intellectual, ideological scenario that which they create, an environment they create so that they can operate on this ideological level. And the inevitable consequence of this is demonising people on the other side, to whatever they are or think they are, into a position of occupying the position of total evil, the embodiment of evil, towards whom they can express any hatred and loathing they wish to. They're not being hypocrites about love trumps hate. You've got to get this. They're not being hypocrites. They're constantly accused of being hypocrites. They are, of course, they're hypocrites on a certain level. But the point is, it's something that is absolutely central to their philosophical view of the world. It's not something they're falling short of their highly stated standards or whatever. It's built in to what they think about the world, that they must counter hatred with visceral hatred of their own. And that's what you need to understand about how leftist ideology works. Far from falling short of their stated principles, they are actually pursuing their stated principles. That's all for now.